In 1895, parents liked to dress up their little boys in fancy clothes. The boys felt like they were getting dressed up like they were a girl. Needless to say, they hated it. So what was a boy to do? Well, go out and play with his friends, of course. And find the perfect mud puddle. This issue of the Walla Walla Gazette newspaper is December 14th, 1895. The social whirl. The gentlemen of Walla Walla maintain the social dignity of the sex by the practice of manly sports. For a town of its population, the Garden City has gained the reputation of being far advanced in the arts of social entertainment. We have polo players whose fame is sounded from British Columbia to the peninsula of California. Our riflemen at the penitentiary and at Fort Walla Walla have run up scores as high as have been recorded anywhere on the Pacific coast. While our football and baseball teams are not constantly in action, they acquit themselves creditably when they do play. There has always been an interest in the chase. Until the last few years, there was plenty of game to be found within a couple of hours' ride from the city. But high and mighty civilization has driven before her and trampled underfoot the wild aborigines of this country. What civilization has destroyed, however, that can she again create. And so our hunters, when they have no game to pursue, ship it in from the forest haunts, and in the manner of the old world, organize artificial hunting parties. Such was the one that left the city Wednesday morning to engage in a bear chase. The affair was given by Messrs. H. Gardner, L. Tallman, and Charles Hungate. Hungate brought along 2 trained pups, which had engaged encounters with Bruin on 2 previous occasions. One is a tracing hound with 1/4 bulldog, and the other is a greyhound mixed with cur and came from Indian breeding and training. Tallman brought along a pup 1 year old from Siberian blood and foxhound extraction. The Siberian bloodhounds are such as were used in the South to hunt down slaves. And he brought along a dog 2 years old from fox and greyhound ancestors. The bear, which had been hauled in a cage from the city, was turned loose in Scottsfield on Mill Creek, about 3 miles above Walla Walla, and given 20 minutes to make tracks. When the dogs were released, they followed the trail to the water, the hunters pursuing on horseback. Bruin has skillfully maneuvered in crossing and recrossing the creek to put the dogs off his course and thereby gain time. He was finally overtaken, however, and then the fun began. The dogs were so numerous and so eager for a fight that the Bruin was hedged in on all sides. The pack prevented his every attempt to gain a tree. Finally, he rushed on the pack for a final encounter. Tallman's old dog grabbed him by the ear and threw him to the earth. The dog held the bear there for nearly 10 minutes. Meanwhile, the dog was being severely punished by the Bruin's claws, which he used freely. The other dogs took advantage of this opportunity to become acquainted with the shaggy animal's anatomy. Tallman's dog finally lost his hold and the bear regained his feet. The bear took to a drift of brush in the water, and then a swimming fight was waged between him and all the dogs for some minutes. Thus waged the fight for 1½ hours and over a mile of territory before the bear was slaughtered. The bear's carcass is on sale at Brennan's Meat Market. Holiday goods. We don't want the earth, but we have a garden spot at 14 East Main Street where goods to please the eye, suitable for holiday gifts, meet you at every turn. Times may be hard and money scarce, but we have selected a number of cheap articles appropriate for presents. It is not value of the gift, but the kind remembrance of a friend brings pleasure to the recipient. Just received an elegant assortment of banquet lamps from New York. Griffith & Company. The attendance at Walla Walla College Place has increased to 225. There is now a German department in the college. Dr. W.A. Calder was in court Thursday for assaulting a Chinaman. He was fined $5 in costs, in all amounting to $15.45. Remember, the skating rink at the Armory Building is open Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday evenings. Every Friday night, a dance will be given after skating. The rink is also open on Saturday afternoons. No disreputable character allowed, and good order is assured. On the Philadelphia. Seattle, December 9th. One day this week, a crowd of 5,000 people visited the U.S. flagship Philadelphia, anchored in this harbor. Your correspondent, being among the number, was shown special attention by the commanding officers. This mansion, built to ride on the rolling deep, cost $1,300,000, has 380 men, of whom 50 are officers. The length of this warship is 315 feet. It is 45 feet in width and 85 feet in height, making 4 stories or decks. It carries 206 guns. The sailor boys, being more than 300 in number, eat and sleep in one very large room on the second deck. There is no sign of bedding save the hammocks neatly folded overhead. The rations and the dishes are concealed in a chest. The men are divided into messes of 18 each. There is one cook for each mess. We saw 4 Japanese cooks preparing a sumptuous dinner for the officers. They have their own printing office as well as their own blacksmith shop. And what gave us great surprise was to learn that the green water of the sea was changed by distillation into what looks and tastes like the water that filled the old oaken bucket that hangs in the well. They also manufacture ice. Another thing not pleasant to see but much needed is a jail, with sides, floor, and ceiling perforated and with steam turned on the floor. Jack is sobered in less than 2 hours' time. Each sailor is allowed 30 cents per day aside from his regular wages, which does much towards furnishing the sweat pot with a victim. We were most anxious to stay on board until the sunset hour, that we might hear and feel the close thunderings of one of the large guns. But as the time approached, with no warning was made, we made a bold to ask the occasion of the delay. We were told by a attending officer that Uncle Sam does not allow in times of peace this huge death weapon to be fired. Last but not least, our attention was called to the clock in the hall, and being told its cost was $5,000, we viewed it with much interest. The design was most beautiful, and an interesting story might be written upon the striking things that the clock betrayed. A large eagle with outspread wings protected the goddess of liberty and justice. The stars and stripes were not lacking, made of hammered bars of the finest workmanship. On the face of silver, the large figures and hands are of gold. As darkness was fast approaching, we bid the courteous attendant farewell, assuring them that the few hours spent on board the ship would be among the pleasantest of our life. George Manbray and James Donnelly were fined $90 and costs each last Monday by Justice Nixon for stealing a suit of clothes from the White House Clothing Company store Saturday evening. The men went into the store about dark, and when chance offered an opportunity, they helped themselves to a suit of clothes and skipped out. The stolen suit was soon missed, and a search for the men resulted in their being captured at Brown's store near the depot. They were unable to pay their fine and will languish 2 months in the county jail. The home. Who will wear the breeches, the husband or the wife? That is the grave problem which is presented and represented in many households. The man naturally wants to preserve this attribute of virility, but the woman, forgetting the vows that she made at the altar, frequently endeavors to capture this emblem of authority in the home. The struggle is sometimes long and bitter, and the ardor of the combatants is easily understood. Sire Hain was a tailor and was the most patient of men. Unfortunately for him, his wife was capricious and afflicted with an ungoverned temper. At last the tailor got out of patience. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I will throw my breeches down into the yard, and then we will go downstairs, and whichever one of us succeeds in recovering them first will be boss of this house." Mrs. Hain accepted the challenge with delight and invited her neighbor Simon and her friend Mrs. Opus to be the judges of the combat. At the appointed time, the combatants appeared in the yard, and the struggle for the breeches began. It was a long battle, and the description of it given by the poet occupies no less than 180 verses. Mrs. came very near capturing the prize, but in the struggle she stumbled into a big basket and got fastened with it with her feet in the air. She cried for assistance, but the husband took advantage of her unexpected position and put on the breeches, or rather what had remained of them, for the precious garment had suffered considerably in the melee. The judges declared that the wife was conquered, but she was not willing to yield until they threatened to leave her in her unenviable position. Afterwards, she was an obedient wife.